Okay, so hi guys, and welcome to a quick little guide to the Morrigan. So, Zero Jungle Practice here. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of her abilities, how to build her, and generally just give you a feel of a god and whether you should play her or not. So what is them? Well, we all know what the Morrigan does, right? Her ultimate lets her turn into any other character in the game, which is crazy. But otherwise, she's kind of a burst mage. You can stealth up to people, get close to them, and then just obliterate them. If you enjoy bursting people down, if you enjoy having a tool for every fight, really the Morrigan's for you. So yeah, let's get into the guide. So the Morrigan is the hardest god in the game. It will take you quite a little while to really get used to the feel of her kit. It took me about 50 games, I'd say, until I actually felt competent in the character. But once you feel competent, you can just wreck people, especially with this new like Goodness Basque build. It's just crazy OP. So right. So first, if we go over the abilities, I've ranked up to level 20, so you can see there. So right, your passive is basically right. So oh, fuck off. Right. So ignore that. So basically, you get So you have a hit chain, right? She's one of a few ranged gods that have a hit chain. So as you can see there, first and second strike are the same, but the third strike, when you hit someone, it hit them in a small area, and it will tick for 9% of their maximum health, which is actually really good. It's basically really good for clearing early game. It's really good for boxing people in early game, especially in the mid lane. Like, if your opponent just wants to auto attack you, you will always win the trade so long as you're landing your autos, because 9% of someone's max health is about... It adds up, you know. It's a decent amount of damage. So, her one is basically a charge up move. You press it, and it charges up similar to Athena's dash. It like revs up. Then you can activate it and stun people in an AoE. It's quite close range, but it does a lot of damage, and it scales really highly with power, so especially in the late game, that's going to be really hitting hard. Her 2 is probably one of my favourite abilities in the game. So it seems like bland on the surface and it's a wave clear, but it's actually really good. It's got a lot of uses. So basically, you fire out a projectile. It deals bonus damage to minions, so you can wave clear with it. But what's really cool is basically how it interacts with enemy gods. So I've just showed off third ability already. Oh no! But I'll show you here. So you see when I hit Odin, all of them are marked, right? And if I damage that marked god with any ability, or if my team damages that marked god with any damaging ability, they take the same damage again. So although it looks like pretty shit damage to characters, when you add it up and combo it with other abilities from your teammates or the Morrigan herself, you're going to be doing a lot of damage. This is also with a really short cooldown, so if you time it well, I'll show you now, so you can see they're all marked. It's got a 7-second cooldown, and this marks targets for 8 seconds, so... Right, yeah, if you time it well enough, and your opponent lets you do this, it's quite rare it'll happen, you can basically proc your own mark with a 2. Another combo you can do is 2-1. First one for 2, and then 1 them, and that 1 will proc for damage, and it will do just a shit ton of burst damage, really. So, right, the third ability is stealth. You create a little decoy, and you go invisible. You go invisible for a decent amount of time, but unlike, say, Loki, damage will take you out of stealth. It's like Alquang, basically. You move a lot faster while you're in stealth, and also, while you're in stealth, I'll just show you here, you can charge up your 1. But if you attack, obviously it takes you out of stealth. So this creates a really interesting dynamic with a character, basically. So, first off, you need to learn, do you want to use your stealth to engage, or do you want to use it to disengage, right, to get out? So if you use it to engage, you've then got 2 choices of what you want to do. You could either use the 2-1, which is less reliable, but it does more damage up front, or I'll just reset the cooldowns and I'll show you.
You cannot comprehend us.
You could use the 1-2. So you can charge up the 1, hit him with the 1, and then mark him with the 2, and then you can hope that your teammate can proc that for you, or that you can get the Dark Omen cooldown off and just proc it yourself.
Your future looks bleak.
It's less reliable, but it's safer to do that. I can't really give you a guide as to which combo you should use and when. It's really, really like getting the feel of a god, and that's part of what makes her so difficult. You can also, you can choose whether you want to use the stealth to engage, and sneak up to someone, or whether you want to use it to get out after you've used the 1 on people. If you do use it to get out, you're going to need to be really clever with how you position so you can get your damage off onto someone. Because Morrigan's damage is pretty hard to confirm unless you're stealthed. Because when you charge this up, everyone knows the sound effect. So people are going to be watching out for that. When you use your 2, everyone knows that you're going to be following up with 1, which takes like 1 second to charge, and they'll throw all your CC at you. You need to be clever with how you use this character. The flip side of having all these very obvious abilities and charge ups is that this character creates absolutely shit tons of mind games of her opponents, right? So when you press that 1, that'll panic people, it can force out CC abilities, but you can cancel it. You can cancel it, it won't go on cooldown, it won't cost any mana, right? For instance. Another thing is when you mark someone with the 2, that panics people. People instantly are set on edge. And just marking someone with a 2 can be enough to force someone to retreat on an ability that's like on a 7-second cooldown. It's craziness. This character's just ridiculous if you know how to play her. Her stealth also creates a lot of mind games. This decoy can actually fool people even though you can kill it with 1 hit. Someone sees a Morrigan running at them, they're going to be fucking terrified because this character can like one-shot you, right? So this could actually create a lot of mind games. You can also use a clone for various things, like you can use it to block defaults, stuff like that. It's actually block Ularax is another one I've used it for. It will die, but you've blocked the ability and that's really good. Although, bear in mind that this also means stuff like Baron 2 will heal if it hits a Morrigan clone. For some strange reason, I don't know why it does that, but it does. So right, what was I going to talk about? Oh yes, so using the 1. The sound effect's really obvious, so you're going to need to be kind of clever with how you cast it. You can flank with it, you can leave it up basically. There's a risk reward to the ability, right? Because obviously you have to get in close as a squishy character, but if you get in there you do a lot of damage and you stun them, which sets up for you 2. Or if you use the 2-1, same deal, you need to know. You need to know when to use a 2-1 and when to use a 1-2. It's all about decisions, and that's kind of what makes this difficult. I haven't even talked about the ult yet, but basically, yeah, this is what this character is about, decisions. One thing that will help is if you build CDR, your stealth cooldown can actually be really low. So, you notice here that as soon as I enter stealth, the cooldown starts ticking down. That's not something that Alquang's stealth does, for instance. It's something Loki's does, but Morrigan's doesn't. So this kind of links nicely into builds, I guess. On this character, you want a nice bit of CDR. So this is what I build on her. You start with Book of Souls and Potions. Book of Souls, basically this character has really, really good early pressure. I know I'm level 20, so this is going to seem very skewed, but I'll actually show you how powerful Morrigan's level 1 is here. So right, we can get into some lane minions. Right, so the Book of Souls empowers your auto attacks and your clear. You can see here that for a character with a weak early game like Morrigan's meant to have, this clear is actually really, really good, right? And it gets better as you rank up your 2. We'll talk about skill order later. So yeah, that's what you're gonna want to start. You're then gonna wanna. I personally go for boots first, but you can go for rush into the book straight away. I go for boots. It's up to you whether you want CDR or pen boots. I lean towards pen boots just because Morrigan does a lot of damage, and it's good to actually kind of amplify the damage that you deal. Although you can build CDR so you can get more ults early. We'll talk about the ult in a bit, and so you can get more thingamajigs, stealths off, and stuns, and yeah, just cancer. It also gives mana, which is good for the Book of Thoth, I guess, but I prefer pen boots. So yeah, speaking of which, we're then going to go into Book of Thoth. This item's broken. It gives the most power of any mage item in the game, so you're always going to want to build it, basically. Morrigan's no exception, she likes to do damage. And I'm sorry that the skill ward is fucking ticking away in the background. So right, after that, we're going to go into Bimbus Mask. This item is absolutely broken at Morrigan. And the reason is, look at how fast you go in stealth. Look at how fast. It's so easy to just sneak up to someone and just do that in the late game, right? And just kill them instantly. It also gives you really good escapes, and crucially, it gives you CDR. Now CDR means that you're going to be able to get more ultimate stuff. And Morrigan's ultimate is the best move in the game. It's the hardest move to get using the game, so we'll get into it in a bit. But it's also the best move in the game because, yeah, anyone in the match you can just turn into them. It's mental, crazy shit. Even if you're at a deficit, that ultimate's really good. So right after that, Spear of Desolation. It's expensive, I know, but it gives CDR, it gives pen, and it gives a lot of power, and they're all stats that you want this Morrigan. And by that time, by the way, you should have a Book of Fluff stacked, so you see you can get, with these 4 items, you get 386 power. Now, I know the Bimba's Mask give you less damage dealt, and obviously more damage taken, but actually, the damage that you lose isn't that significant. You have so much power and pen anyway with this build that it doesn't even matter that you're losing out on this damage. You have 20% CDR for more ults and more stealth, so you can see here.
Only fools follow the raven.
The stealth uptime on this at level 20 is absolutely ridiculous. You get 5 seconds of downtime. No, 6 seconds of downtime, 6 seconds of uptime, which with something that can make you visible is absolutely crazy. So if you play it well, it can be really good. Right. You then gonna. I like polynomic on this character, and I'll show you the reason why. I'm gonna spawn a Rabot, and I'm gonna show you how dumb this damage is. It's really died. No, but you see that? He's at 70% health, and now I can just. Yeah, it just does 70% health in one hit. I'll just show you the ult. You can see there, with polynomic on Morrigan's damage is absolutely nuts. So even when you're using the 1-2, as opposed to the 2-1, it does a lot of damage. If you use the 2-1, it does even more. Sorry to bump the microphone. That's crazy. And the last item is really up to you. It doesn't really, that is situational. Some people would say Obsidian Shard if they've got a lot of tanky gods. Obviously Obsidian Shard's tank busting capabilities are very strong. You could get a Soul Gem for more CDR, and because Soul Gem and Polyprox would just be nonsense. You could get Cronus Pendant, which maxes out your CDR. You could get Soul Reaver. You could get for more damage. You could get a Book of the Dead. It's really up to you. I'm just gonna, for the purposes of this, just say Cronus Pendant. Although you can go with Obsidian Shards, or you can go Soul Reaver, or you can go Book of the Dead, or you could get Soul Gem. It's really up to you. I like Cronus Pendant just because Morrigan with cooldown reduction, especially in the late game, is nonsense. And the reason for that is obviously you can spam your Romans, you can spam your one, you have crazy stealth uptime with CDR, and you have crazy ultimate cooldowns with CDR, right? Okay, so that's builds. In terms of skill order, in terms of skill order, Morrigan's very straightforward when it comes to ranking up your abilities. I'll set level 20 and I'll show you. Right, so get your 1 at level, you get your 2 at level 1, sorry, and that's because it's just the best wave clear, right? At level 2 it's very doubtful that you'll need stealth, so I get the stun. The stun makes you really good with your jungler actually fighting out the enemy mid laner at level 2 or the enemy jungler. I've personally got kills by just walking up to the enemy jungler, doing this, popping the omen on someone, and then can fork and like double tap them. Does crazy damage, makes her really strong. In the early game, level 3, if you feel unsafe you can get the stealth, but I personally just go for another point into 2 because it really helps you wave clear. Level 4, it's up to you still. It depends. Do you need the stealth or not? And another consideration when we're ranking up Morrigan's skill orders is, do you want to actually have a free ability if you turn into the enemy god? And the reason I say that is because, as you can see here, when you copy someone, the abilities that you can use are the abilities that you've ranked up, and it will transfer the ranks that you have as Morrigan onto the enemy god you turn into. So yeah, I personally always get the free for that reason. Even if I don't need the stealth, if I want to turn into say 4, I'm going to want my free, right? If I want to turn into a rat, I want to get my free. I want to have these abilities at my disposal when I turn into the enemy god. But you can, by all means, point skip at level 4 and then take another point in your 2 and another point in your ult. It's unsafe. I think it's not very good, but you can do it. So obviously at level 5 you want your ultimate. If you've point skipped your 3, you want your 2. But you always want your ultimate. From here on, you're going to want to rank up your ultimate whenever it's available. So at level 9, at level 13, at level 17, and level 20. The reason for that is this is literally the longest cooldown in the game. Without CDR, at level 5, this ultimate has the same cooldown as your beads. And that's a very, very long cooldown. That means you can't waste that ultimate. But at the same time, it means you also want to get that cooldown down, right? Because you want it. The main reason you play Morrigan is even though she has good burst damage, even though she has that stealth to sneak up to people, the ultimate's what she's all about, so you want that. Past that, you're going to want to obviously take your 2 at level 6, 7, rank it up, get that wave clear, get that damage, good shit. At level 8 it's up to you. You can take an extra point in your stun and it adds a lot of extra damage. 55 damage isn't a joke. Or you can point skip. I personally just take the stun because from the skirmishes I want the stun. But you can point skip and by all means at level 9 then get your 2 and your ult at the same time and have a really powerful power spike. I personally don't point skip. So at level 9 obviously you want your ult, and if you point skip you want to take your 2 again. At level 10 you take your 2 again. You're then going to want to rank up your 1. Level 12. You're going to want to rank up your ult. You're going to want to get you 1 at level 14 and max it out. Then you're just going to want to take stealth, ult, stealth, ult. And yeah, so it's 4, 2, 1, 3 is the skill order you want to go. Can points. So if you want to just screenshot this, can point skip at level 4 or 8. Or you could point skip at level 13. Or level 12. No. No, ignore that. Sorry. Level 12. Level 8, yeah. Very professional, I know. I haven't got a script for this, you can probably tell. So, yeah. Right, we're now going to just go into a generalized kind of phase of the game guide. Obviously, early game, you want to kind of play safe. But if your jungle is being aggressive, right? And if you want to join in the fight, you have a stun that deals good damage. You have the 2 which deals good damage with your jungler. You have a stealth to sneak up to people. And of course you can turn into a jungler and then have a really good early game. I would say you want to play it safe in the early game just because Morrigan is a god that likes to have those items in line so she can one-shot people, get more ult stuff, all that juicy shit. But in the early game, by all means, you can make some plays on this character. Mid-game, with Vimba's Master especially, Morrigan's a fantastic roamer, and the reason for that is, I will show you now why the reason for that is, stealth. You can stealth, you can charge up your 1, or you don't even need to stealth, right? The stealth helps you move faster and helps you sneak up to people, but you can charge up your 1, right? Stun the enemy ADC, put a 2 on them, and they're just squish balls at this point, right? It makes her very good at setting up kills. And of course, when you roam, you can turn into, say, the enemy Ula, right? You can turn into your Ula and have 2 Ulas. You can turn into Ares, get 2 Ares ults, get that juicy damage from chains, right? There's so many possibilities with this god, and I fucking love her. Late game, Morrigan's kind of simple to play. Well, I say kind of simple to play. It's more about execution. It's simple what you need to do. So, in the late game, you want to get big juicy burst combos off, and you want to turn into enemy gods to provide whatever your team needs, right? If your team needs more frontline presence, you can turn into a tank. If your team needs more mage damage or like some objective skewer, you can turn into their Kukulkan, into their Ra, into their Thoth, right? If your team needs more objective thread, you can turn into like their ultimate. Their ultimates or your ultimates, for instance. There's a lot of options available. So yeah, I guess we're talking about the ult now, so we may as well get into it. Morrigan's ult is the longest cooldown in the game, but it's also the most powerful move in the game should you use it. This is a very, very difficult move to learn, and it will take you some time. Morrigan is the hardest god. I know it's a meme. Morrigan's so hard, but she is. she's by far the hardest god in the game, because if I turn into this Ra, right, I have 10 seconds to make effective use of his kit, and then I need to actually pull it off, right? By playing Morrigan, you need to have a good knowledge of what every other god in the game can do and how to best utilize their kit in 10 seconds. And that 10 seconds, honestly, is a difficult bit. You have to suddenly switch up your strategy from this stealth burst mage into like some Ra or some Guan Yu or some Ymir, you know, or you could turn into like Thanatos and you have to suddenly adapt into Thanatos as opposed to just a stealth one-shot character, right? She's pretty crazy. And then after that 10 seconds, you need to be Morrigan again, so you need to be able to play both Morrigan and the gods that you're turning into. But if you can, it's very rewarding. Being able to cast multiple ults onto the same multiple of the same ult, I think, is a key onto the same person. Very powerful. Being able to turn into their Fed Assassin and then just fucking destroy people, very powerful. And obviously in the late game, as we've touched on, this god has a lot of versatility with who she can turn into. So, right. So yeah, we're now going to talk about basically the different phases of the game. It kind of changes. Early game, you do not want to waste this ult. You don't want to waste the ult. You don't want to waste the ult, obviously. But early game, especially because this thing has such a long cooldown, it's literally the same investment as using a pair of beads. That's how long the cooldown is. You want to use this ult very wisely. So there's a few things that you need to know. Obviously, when you turn into someone, you inherit their skill ranks, and you need to take that into account, I think, when you're turning into the god. So if obviously it's quite bad because you're in jungle practice, so it's kind of skewed who I could turn into. I could turn into a lot of Odin bots. Wow. But yeah, if preferable, you want to be turning into gods who have a very similar skill order to you. So you want to be turning into gods that have a 4-2-1-3 skill order if possible. If it's not possible, it's fine, because the key with Morrigan's ult is... Right, and there's a reason you can't snowball against the Morrigan. Or there's a reason why having a fed god who's on the same team as a Morrigan is a threat. When you turn into whoever Morrigan turns into, you copy their stats, regardless of the level that you personally as Morrigan are at. You copy all of their current stats, all of their current items. So even though you don't have the same skill ranks as them, stat-wise, auto attacks are going to hit just as hard. You're going to be just as tanky, right? Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but that's basically how it goes, right? So it's really powerful. You cannot fucking snowball against this character, and at the same time, if you have two fucking fed Thanatoses running at you from the same team, it's going to be a nightmare. So it's really fun. So basically, yeah, this makes Morrigan the best character in the game from behind, because it doesn't matter if you get behind. While you roll stuff anyway, it doesn't matter. You can just turn into people, right? And then you can get fed that way. Or alternately, it makes Morrigan very scary from the head. She's just a very scary character, but it's all about knowing how to play her. So, yeah. Right, mid-game, same kind of deal. At level 13 especially, you want to turn into people who have who want their 2-in-1 maxed out. A good example would be Thanatos, Odin. Who else wants their 2-in-1 maxed out? Scylla, people like that, right? You inherit all of their current traits, so you want to take into account what a particular god can do in a fight. There's just a lot to keep track of with this character. As the game goes on, using your ult becomes less of a kind of commitment. Although I say that, do not be afraid to use your ult, honestly. Especially in the late game. Like, don't be afraid to use your ult as a defensive tool, actually. Some of the best escapes I've had, if you're against this enemy Sun Wukong, you've got Sun Wukong in your team, right? Sun Wukong's a really, really easy god to escape with, whereas Morrigan only has a stealth. And damage reveals her while she's in stealth. It's not like a hard movement ability. Even though stealth is good at getting out, it's not going to be as powerful as, say, like, Thoth's 75 unit dash or Janus portals. So what you can do is you can turn into like Janus, you can turn into Sun Wukong, turn into Saget if need be. Sometimes being able to get out in those situations is actually more powerful than just using a ult purely for damage would be. At the same time, you can if you're shredding down a fire giant, do not be afraid to turn into like a Ram and just shred it down. I do that all the time. Getting that objective is more powerful than just killing someone with your ultimate, right? You want to use your ultimate to win, not just to get kills. And if winning means escaping, if it means turning into a tank so that you can tank a tower even when your Ymir's fucking fed his brains out, right? If it means turning into a hunter so you can shred objectives, if it means turning into Hunbat so you can get a nice Hunbat ult off in a team fight, do it. Just fucking do it. You're only that good for 10 seconds anyway. And, you know, sometimes just being able to do that is really powerful, because when you rank this down, I mean, like, basically if the cooldown lowers, and that matters with CDR too. So, yeah, just bear in mind that Morrigan's ult has more uses than just killing people, right? You know, like I said, if you need to shred down the objective, you can turn into Artemis. If you need to secure the objective, turn into their Ra. You know, if I wanted to split push this Phoenix, I could turn into Loki and I could split push it, right? You know, the fact that Morrigan can turn into any god in the game is this ult literally has infinite possibilities. You will always be learning new stuff for this character just because of how crazy powerful like this ult is and how many possibilities it opens. And then I guess I'll wrap it up now. And then also like yeah, she also has a lot of possibilities with a kit. You can stun people, you can nuke people every 7 seconds. You have crazy long duration stealth to sneak up to people. You know, you can outbox pretty much anyone in the early game, right? But it's all about knowing when you're good to do so. So it's about knowing when you should use the 1-2 or your 2-1, right? It's about knowing whether you should use your 3 to engage so you can sneak up to someone, or just flanking them. So yeah, or just flanking them with the stun when they can't hear you pop the sound effect, and that's a key. And then popping the 2, and then using it 3 to get out, because stealth is still pretty powerful to get out with. Bear that in mind. Alright. It's all these... She has a lot of decisions in her kit, and I really like that. In terms of mechanics, she isn't too hard, but one thing I will say, this is a reverse cone, and as a mage, you obviously want to position a pretty safe position. You need to be very kind of subtle with how you use this one. You know, Morrigan in lore is all about being subtle, and it's the same with this one. You know, you don't want to just walk up to someone and go, "Hi, I'm going to charge my one," right? Because they'll just fucking interrupt you, they'll turn around, they'll kill you, they'll dodge the stun, like, something will happen. You want to be sneaky with how you use your one. But bear in mind that that charge up also gives it a bit of versatility, you know? Because you have so many mind games you could just play with this character. You can play mind games like sneaking kind of around the jungle, charging the one and the enemy carry when he's about to kill your Ulu. It's like, oh shit, there's a Morrigan there. Maybe I should retreat, but nope, you're just going to turn around on their support, for instance, right? That's so cool. Or you can like mark someone who's chasing someone with the 2, right? And they just shit this. I missed, but you get the idea. They just shit themselves like, oh crap, I'm marked. Maybe I should run away because Morrigan does so much burst damage when she has that 2 on you, right? Her allies suddenly become more threatening when that 2's on them. And that 2's on you, even. So it's, yeah, there's a lot of just possibilities of this character, man. She takes a lot of time to get used to. She's one of the hardest gods in the game for sure, if not the hardest. I'm a bit skeptical to say she's the hardest outside of the ultimate. But she's up there. She's going to take you a while to learn. Don't feel bad if you're at like Mastery 5 Morrigan. You're like, oh my god, I can't learn this second character, right? She's difficult. Especially if you're not experienced in the mid lane. And that's really where you should be playing her, I think. She's a very difficult character. But once you get her down, she's crazy. This character is absolutely ridiculous. And she's a ton of fun. I would personally recommend playing her. Obviously I would, because I like play Morrigan. And I've made a guide on Morrigan, but yeah, go out and learn her. I'm just rambling on now, so I'm gonna just tune out, and yeah, goodbye.